Welcome everybody to the weekly Rewst Open Mic. We do this for you all. We want to give you a chance to see what's new in Rewst and what bugs have been fixed. Also a chance to do some R&D, rob and duplicate from your MSP peers. Hard water's the only water, blah, blah, blah. A couple of reminders. This is a highly technical call. So if you aren't technical, now is a great time to learn. Make sure you use Discord. Most of our our most successful users are the ones who are active in Discord. Please use a thread or tag us as we're monitoring many channels at once. And finally, happy birthday to Adam. Aaron.
No promise of folders?
Oh yeah, no. Aaron is the one who is specifically saying we can't do folders or negative time savings as well.
So it's all your fault, Aaron, is what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Speaking about what Daniel mentioned, this is a technical call. One of the things that I love to see, and we talk about all the time, is like that, instilling that culture of automation from the top, and being involved in what your automation practices are, even if you aren't necessarily the one that's in there doing all the technical work. And maybe you even hire ProServe to do some work for you, but being involved, I love to see that. And so I was having a conversation with Jim Barry, and I jokingly said I twisted his rubber arm to show us a little bit about what he's done. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that. But without further ado, let's get into the technical stuff and hand it over to Nick.
Thanks, Ash. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our weekly Roc call. I'll go ahead and start by sharing my screen as I normally do, and we will talk about some updates to the product this week. All right. We've got a few small new features. Org Picker, which we've been working on for a while, has been fully deployed to all users, so everybody has access to our new Org Picker now. We've added some new triggers. We've added triggers for the WebRoot integration. We also added a trigger for Rewst create publish. So if you have things you want to kick workflows on from WebRoot, you can do that now. And if you want to kick off a workflow when we publish a crate, you can also do that. We've added a new Jinja filter. These are the filters that you can pipe data to when you're writing Jinja. One of our Roc people, Dan Hayes, actually executed this, and he had a struggle and he solved his own problem. So oftentimes APIs will return JSON as strings, or say you're reading some data and it returns the JSON as a string, and then you go to pipe that data to JSON, only to find out that the JSON is invalid or malformed, which will cause your workflow to error. There's not a super easy way around that until now. You can first pipe that string to isJSON. It will tell you true or false if the string is JSON serializable or not, and then you can proceed to parse that JSON string. We've also added a new Slack action to invite users to Slack. So if you want to invite users to Slack from Rewst, we now have a built-in Slack action for that. And a whole bunch of bug fixes and chores as usual. I'll just go through these fairly quickly. We fixed a bug saving new variables to a workflow or being reverted in the UI despite them being saved to the database, which is causing quite a bit of confusion. So that's been resolved. Fixed a crate unpacking issue when the crate contained secret key fields. We've added a flag to integrations to allow the public website to determine if the integration should be shown on the public website or not. We've fixed login pages for app platforms so that they respect global themes for an app. So previously, your CSS and themes were not being applied to login pages, and they now can be. We fixed a performance issue with forms that have a large number of activated orgs. They were loading very slow for users. And so now you can activate your form for thousands of suborgs and it will not be slow. We fixed a bug in app platform that was causing the app and page list screens to crash in some cases. We refactored and improved the data RMM integration. We've fixed an unhandled exception with toast error messages in custom integrations v2. We also updated custom integrations v2 to prevent changing the runner type or entry point parameters, which would break the integration. We've also changed the Rewst create org variable action to be an upsert instead of a create to prevent a number of errors. So users were using this action in workflows quite often, and we were getting thousands of errors per hour due to the variables that were trying to be created already existing. So we've migrated that to an upsert. We've added a fallback to prevent canceled workflows from becoming stuck in the canceling status. If you've ever had to manually cancel a workflow and then it sat in the status of canceling and never finalized to canceled, that issue has now been resolved. We fixed a bug with some GraphQL caching implementation in our GraphQL API. We've fixed some Synix AU integration authentication headers. Fixed a bug in custom integrations v2 where the query parameters were being ignored in some cases. We allowed generic API actions to provide an override URL to fix. We did this specifically to fix a problem with LionGuard, but it's available to all integrations that have a generic API call action. We fixed some padding in the CSS for option generated drop-down fields in forms. In some cases, when the label was quite long, they were getting scrunched together, and it was not a great user experience. So we fixed that issue. We fixed some parameters for create and update network connect actions for DNS filter integration. We increased the max page size that we pull back for LionGuard. Fixed a number of actions for Synix AU. We updated the to human time from seconds Jinja filter that would humanize provide a human readable date time for seconds. That was previously rounding to the nearest second. It will not do that anymore. It will include milliseconds for you. And we've also completed our JSON RPC base client that'll allow us to build integrations that use that protocol easier and faster. Some things still in the works. Multiplayer workflows v1 is launching very soon. We're just having discussions today about doing a staged rollout for users next week. So we're hoping that some of you will start to see that new feature next week. I do want to just mention some things about that to avoid any potential confusion. This is our first step in multiplayer workflows. It's not complete. Our goal here is to allow users to see when other users are viewing and potentially editing the same workflow. It will show you what action or what task in a workflow that a user has clicked on. It will show you where their mouse is at, but it will not open. It will not open the action that a user has clicked on. It will not show you them typing or changing anything. It will not automatically sync your workflow with their changes, but it is a good visual indication that you might be editing the same workflow as one of your co-members, co-workers, or team members. And we plan to add some of that additional functionality in the future. Bitdefender integration is still in QA review. Granular forms permissions actually just finished QA review today, so we'll be moving that one on. IT portal integration, Synix Australia, Cove, GitHub, still being reviewed. App platform page export import functionality has been deployed this week for staff, so we're testing this functionality. And I actually just saw a demo a bit earlier today showing full application export and import. This is the first step in allowing us to make apps available in the Crate marketplace. It's going to use the same functionality that workflows, forms, templates, and scripts use. So that import export functionality is the first step there. We've got it working for pages, and saw a demo for doing a whole app earlier today. So lots of great progress there. We're hoping to have full app platform apps in the marketplace in the not too distant future. Some things in code review and development. Still working on Crushbank, Nodeware, SQL integration. Connect Secure v4 is a new one that we've started working on, and we're refactoring the Pax8 integration. Does anybody have any questions on any of these items? Jim.
I just had one. The line guard integration, those changes, do you know if you now, it's unpublished, there are some V2 actions that they are slowly rolling out, and I think it's more of a documentation delay than the API is not being ready. Do you know if the way these changes are to enable the use of the V2 endpoints?
I don't think these changes were specifically geared towards V2. Daniel, do you know if V2 is on the radar for us?
So it's not on the radar for us right now. Andy just put in the chat, V2 is still broke. Is it broken from a Rewst standpoint, or is V2 broken from a line guard standpoint? Andy, if you want to respond in the chat.
From line guard.
From line guard, okay. So I know we have some V2 endpoints. I think the metrics might be V2, but this change is not related to V2 specifically.
Okay.
Christopher Wilcox.
Yeah, on the granular permissions, sorry if you said that, I got distracted with a coworker, but what's the timeline on getting the granular forms permissions out?
So we've been developing this for a couple months now. We had a situation where we use a service to provide a permission system. It was called warrant.dev. They were acquired by WorkOS, which is another fantastic company that provides developer tools. So similar to how we do authentication with Auth0, we used now WorkOS to provide permissions. When they were acquired, we had to do a bunch of work to migrate our system to use their new platform. So that got done. And then in addition to that, we've added more granular forms permissions. And so whenever we touch something as sensitive as permissions, we want to make double sure that we have done very thorough QA testing on it to make sure that we haven't broken any permissions and we don't accidentally expose any data, of course. So that testing has been going on for the past 2 to 3 weeks, and I believe we've just about wrapped up that testing phase as of this week. So I would anticipate this would start to hit production in the next week, maybe 2. Daniel.
There's one other thing too. The testing that we've done on the WorkOS, and we needed to upgrade from Warrant to WorkOS, and so we have to delay actually rolling this out. Otherwise, we risk testing we haven't tested enough on the old role-based authentication system. So that's what's been holding up forms as permissions as well. Is we want to make sure that WorkOS is thoroughly QA'd, which that's pretty much wrapped up, and then we're going to start deploying that out. We can actually deploy that WorkOS change, like our roles and stuff like that, staged as well, and then deploy permissions.
Yeah, so I would expect we'll probably deploy it to production for internal staff users next week. And then potentially the week after that, we will probably start to do a staged rollout like we've done with the new org picker. We'll roll it out to a certain percentage of users over time. So not too far away.
All right, is there a way to get on that first rollout?
I'd reach out to maybe Daniel in Discord, and we can get you on that list there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I promise Jim Barry to be the very first person in the world to get forms permissions. He asks me every day.
Jeffrey.
The Cove integration that you're doing, is that going to tell us which version of Cove is being used so that we can do reconciliation back to our PSA? For billing?
Yeah, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. So is there like an endpoint that tells you what version of Cove is being used? I don't know if I've seen that.
I honestly don't know. It's just been on my list that the fact that they don't have an integration even with Ed Central to do know which version it is, so it's possible that they don't have it. It's just been on my list because we're not tracking any of our costs right now. So when you said it, I went, oh, maybe that'll fix my problem.
Do you mind,
Hey, Chris, I actually got both of those covered in a previous Roc call. The endpoint should be there as long as it has the right column, depending on which one of the two billing models you're on with Cove. But all the columns should, I would assume, will be returned as part of this proper integration.
Okay, cool.
Chris, did you have anything else, or were you just raising to help us out there?
Nope, I did have a question. Is the previous functionality for create organization variable still available in any form? Because I was kind of relying on that failure in some of my workflows.
Okay. That one's, I believe we replaced it. But we definitely don't want to break your workflows. So can you reach out to us on Discord and we can see if we can help you out?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Thanks.
Thanks. Devin, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Back to you, Ash.
Awesome. Good to go. All right. Now we can jump over to Daniel for the marketplace update, and then we will go right over to our Brandon.
All righty. So updates for this week. I know I have a typo in here. I've already tried to correct it. But we have a couple updates to crates. As I mentioned before, we're working on our top 10 crates right now, almost exclusively for the next couple of months, probably just improving the functionality there and making sure that they succeed at higher rates. So the crate ticket workflow, we've made some adjustments to that to remove deprecated actions and replace them with the new actions, as well as add more sub workflows where appropriate, just kind of trying to follow more of our best practice, which is leading to higher success rates and better documented workflows. We've done some similar work to the security distribution group additions workflow for M365. So we changed those into some sub workflows, or added some sub workflows to those. Bug fixes, Rewst user onboarding. We created a new sub workflow to encapsulate the add user to group graph call and catch some of the failures. So that was one area where the workflow was failing quite often, and we created a sub workflow and handled that failure so it didn't fail the entire crate. Rewst user offboarding. We fixed a password reset failure. There was usage location was, I guess, improperly formatted, and we had to add some Jinja to make sure that US was formatted the correct way. And then the amend calendar permissions on user, we added a sub workflow to handle with items failures. And that, again, one of the common failures that we had in there was in a with items. When that would fail, it would fail the entire workflow. So we created a sub workflow out of that and handled the failures appropriately. But yeah, other than that, coming soon, we still have SonicWall firmware update, workstation offboarding, some utility crates that we're talking about. Those are being delayed by improving the top 10 workflows, but there's still things that are in our sites right now. So that's about it for me this week. Thanks, Ashley.
I think the only thing that people took away from that was your typo.
Yeah. I wonder how many people would have noticed it if I didn't say it. On my own worst enemy.
All right, Brandon, over to you.
All right. What's up, everyone? First of all, you guys need to count the hats again. I don't think you're going to get it this time, but we'll find out. Sorry, Daniel. I did merge it for you, but not before it was too late. So apologies for that. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, cool. And am I blurry this week? I hope not. Am I doing better this week, network-wise?
You look crystal clear.
Okay, cool. All right.
let's dig into it then. So first off, game tips of the week. So on the modern game front, unless you count remasters as not being modern, we got East 10 Nordics, Dragon Quest III, HG2D Remake, and Fantasian coming out next week. So definitely pick all of those up because we haven't had enough good RPGs this year, obviously. So you guys need to get those and play those and then tell me how they are because I'm not going to have enough time. On the retro side, I'm about halfway through Xenogears and I'm working on playing through Link to the Past again. So those are both amazing games. You should check those out if you haven't already. But knowing all of you who are gamers, you probably have because this is an awesome community we have here. Oh yeah, and Lucas called out Factorio Space Age on Monday. So shout outs to that as well. All right. We got a big list here to go through because we just came out with our clean automation certifications. So here we go. Ready? Shout outs to Clint, Adam B, Kai, Jonathan, James, Kyan, David, Ed, Zolil, Rob, and Adam K for passing the foundation certification, which is that first step. You guys will get your prestigious certified Rooster badge in Discord and access to our not so super secret Discord channel. And then shout outs to Elliot, David, Derek, Logan, Andrew, Nick, Dustin, Rainer, Nicholas, Patrick, Austin, Sean, Owen, Felipe, Michael D, Brandon, Devin, Aaron, Jared, Ben, Schmeily, Jaden, Emmett, Jeremy, Chris, Tom, Dominic, Michael G, Joe, Will, Nick, Christian, Albert, John R, Trey, and Timothy. For passing the clean automation certification that was just launched, and Lisa and John E with perfect scores. You guys are awesome. So we're very excited. We have just recently released that. If you haven't already and you're finished with the foundation certification, go take the clean automation training and go get that second certification. We have a badge incoming for that as well. I think we'll keep the same super secret Discord channel because it's already pretty awesome. Otherwise, make sure to join us in the CLUCK Discord channel if you have any questions as you are going through the trainings, and sign up for office hours to hang out with Eddie if you have any questions. Otherwise, some major updates on the CLUCK University side. So I'll just go ahead and jump over here and show you guys. We just did some major updates to the way the courses are structured. So first we have our CLUCK University landing page. My hats are definitely falling off my head right now. Where we have updated all of this, where you have the getting started, as well as our Rewst foundations. We have taken out the numbers, and the reason for this is because we want to be able to scale this out. If we want to add content, we want to improve how we're delivering this content to you guys. We want to have some flexibility, and the numbers made that very hard. I'm actually just going to see if the hats do fall on their own. We're just going to see how this goes. So we've broken this down to 7 lessons. Each have their own modules, which I'll show you in the Rewst.help pages here shortly. And then we also have our clean automations changed in a similar structure. We're going to be breaking these down as well. So more updates to come here. And we have our beautiful clean automation certification here, so you can get certified. Shout outs to Trish, who did an amazing job on this page. And shout outs to the team for getting all of these updates here. If you go to Rewst Foundations now, you will see the prerequisites that we have, all of the course lessons available, and then within the course lessons, we've broken down the trainings into these shorter, more compact videos with steps and additional assets that you can make use of as you're going through your learning journey. So for those of you who have not completed the Foundation series, I would encourage you to check it out. And for those of you who have, maybe check it out again anyway. Maybe you need that refresher and you want to give us some feedback. So shout outs to the team for this. We're very excited, and we will continue building some awesome content. Other than that, we basically have the open mic page for last week, and I think that's going to be it for me. I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Brandon. All right. I think you had some guesses in there, so you'll have to let those know whether they were right or wrong. Now we are going to jump over, like I said, we're going to give Jim Barry the floor, and he's got a little bit of an interesting one for us today.
Hi, everyone. So yes, Ash, you did twist my virtual rubber arm a little bit, not too much. like everyone, we go through iterations of what should we work on next and what should we focus on. And it seems like we had more or less a perfect storm of a customer about to onboard, and they were going to go through a lot of device replacements as part of the onboard. So we maybe pushed the gas pedal a little bit on something that we had already started working on previously. And first, a little hats off to Jared and Joe. Mostly Joe was on this, but Jared for bringing the idea to me to engage with ProServe, because I can't get out of my own way most often. I could start all kinds of stuff. It's just finishing that becomes really hard. So shout out really to Joe, because he was very helpful and iterative to understanding that even though we kind of knew what we wanted, we couldn't really know 100% of what we wanted till we went down that road. And then we're like, oh, well, now this too. And what about this too? And what about this too? And I kind of hate when we do that on our line of business software stuff, when we're doing custom dev for customers. And, oh, but if you do this, can you do this? And I kind of go a little bit crazy, but Joe understood kind of the time crunch, because we had this captive bunch of machines to go through this iteration with, as opposed to lab machines, which kind of usually present their own challenge. But essentially we started from the onboard a computer crate from that already existed with ImiBot, and we took it to our level of the things that we need to do and that often get left for later, or get left behind, or never get done, or they get done by different people and not in a consistent way. And it even solved for a problem that we've had for a long time with PSA configurations, when a customer brings their own device and then we don't have a configuration because we didn't sell the device. So essentially, we worked with our internal team to identify some of the things, but mostly it was iterative with Joe Wood at Raven to help us get this through to fruition. So without further ado, I'm going to show you what we did, and hopefully I can get some either input, feedback, or explain why we did what we did. So essentially, the process for onboarding a computer with ImiBot usually starts with creating a flash drive for each customer, or loading the ImiBot agent into their Intune tenant so that you can onboard a machine efficiently. But the challenge with that is that then you need to keep a flash drive for each customer, and or make one all the time, and we just didn't want to have to deal with that. So we created this dummy 0 tenant in ImiBot, and the first thing that we ask in the Rewst form is which tenant is it going to, and I've pre-populated this to kind of keep our lists a little bit more private, and then you really aren't supposed to onboard a machine unless there's a ticket. And this was opportunity number one. As soon as we got this in front of Joe, we're like, wait, we did it for service tickets, and in ConnectWise PSA, service tickets and project tickets are separated. So we needed to make some changes to handle both types of tickets. We did that. All of the computers that are listed in that 0 tenant in ImiBot, that however they show up there, it doesn't matter, are listed, and any partial search. I happen to know that this 445 machine is a machine that's sitting right behind me, and it's one of our lab machines for this use case. And then from here, you could just pick from one of our users that's in our tenant. Actually, I'm going to put this on myself, and then we'll click submit, and we'll talk about the results and stuff later, because this machine's already partially onboarded, and I don't know that we've 100% taken that use case into consideration. But now I'm going to jump into the workflow, and as you can see, we're already planning on offboard at some point here in the not too distant future. So it's pretty much the same set of steps for project or service. We get some org variables, and then we identify the IMI tenant, the destination IMIBot tenant, and we're doing a couple of things that may sound unintuitive, because if we already know who the customer is, why are we starting from that point? And I think it comes back to that we want to keep it simple for our people. There's one flash drive or nothing. There's only one way to do it, right? And that makes us guarantee that we're using this method and not somebody jumping in IMIBot and doing an onboarding manually, right? We're taking users away from that UI and bringing them only into Rewst, so they have to pick from what's available to them. We're doing the right things with creating documentation as we go by adding some ticket notes as appropriate, and we're finding existing configurations, and only if the configuration is found we're going to link that to the ticket, and if it isn't found we're going to go off and we're going to use IMIBot to get some more details about that configuration, and that's for the use case I described at the beginning, where we didn't necessarily sell the computer, so we don't have a configuration to link to the ticket. So we're spawning one based off of the information that we're reading out of the machine. And so again, the left side is service and the right side is project, but largely the processes are the same. And one of the sort of extension things that we did was, or iterations that we did, I suppose, is we're not just adding the configurations, but we're also doing some work with childing configurations, because when you sell a computer and then it onboards to RMM and then it onboards to LionGuard and what have you, you end up with multiple configurations, and then it becomes a challenge when you have a new hire. Which configuration do I pick? So by childing them together, you end up with a side benefit that you're helping technicians pick the right configuration from PSA when they're going to work on a machine that gets an incidental inbound call. And the other thing is it's saving a lot of manual work. That's the part that people don't do, or they don't do correctly, right? Which is the lead configuration and which are the children. In our case, the sold configuration is the lead, and the IMIBot or RMM configurations become the children. So with IMIBot, we once we identify the process and we're going to get moving, we set it to need onboarding, right? That basically is the kickstart to IMIBot. We already know who the user is because we picked that from the in the form, right? And then we're telling IMIBot to go ahead and onboard immediately. Then we sort of wait for a little while for the session to finish. And maybe Joe can help me here. Is this where we're going to embed some Teams work for notification that it's in progress and completing? Is this where we're going to do that in that delay?
That's just giving it time to complete the onboarding, and then if it below that, if it doesn't finish, then that's going to be the Teams notification.
Okay, got it. I just didn't remember if we were doing like progress notifications or just completion. So once onboarding is completed, we're adding more ticket notes. We're updating the configurations, and then the Teams notification is pretty much for a failure, and it's going to notify in the customer's channel so that we're keeping the subject matter topical to that customer. So it's solving for a lot of like fringe use cases that you don't think they're like, they're not initially part of onboarding, right? A device, they're more like administrative or mechanical steps, but it's solving for like down the road, a month later, 2 months later, when there's an inbound call related to that computer. And one of the things that we sort of detected late on, and we just got the LionGuard endpoints for this. LionGuard in its process, when you onboard a device to LionGuard, which is one of the things that we deploy through ImiBot. LionGuard marks it as a discovered item, but it doesn't actually attach it to a tenant and start doing its change tracking and stuff. We just got the endpoints earlier this morning for that from LionGuard, and that is another piece that we're going to do, because what ends up happening now is that it sits there and somebody has to remember to go do it. So we're going to make that as another addition to this process, so that saves yet another manual step. I can tell you, Joe, I don't know how long we spent on this, and I don't know that it matters really. All I know is that the end result is spectacularly different than where we used to end up with people having to sort of come behind each other and clean up or do other steps. We've gotten a lot of what the game I call paper football out of the noise that happens when there's sort of a rollout of many computers, and in the process, we leverage this larger thing to solve a problem that happens even when it's one computer for a new customer or for an existing, whether it's an existing customer or not. There's a side benefit that I hadn't thought of until today. The Hoodoo crates that update data are picking up some of this information, and that's on the Rewst side. But the Hoodoo integration with PSA and LionGuard is now able to create less mess because of these merged configurations. We would end up with the same computer listed in Hoodoo multiple times, and we may still have some cleanup to do on that side, but that's like a hidden benefit because Hoodoo's not mentioned in here at all. And it's already cleaner than it would have been in our old process. And that's pretty much all I got, unless people have questions or whatever.
Thank you. I love hidden benefits like that, when you see that kind of thing, like the tertiary side items where it's like, oh, simply by cleaning this thing up over here, I've benefited over here. There was a hand. Was that a hand up, or it's like it was celebrations? Awesome. Any questions for Jim Barry at all from anyone? Not, we will jump over. Let's go. Okay, Logan, you said yours was a quick one, so let's go to you.
All right, let me get my demo window pulled up super quick. Perfect, there's that, and demo window. All right, so I know a lot of us are using Microsoft Entra for our identity providers, and something as simple as creating a custom attribute can be awkwardly difficult sometimes. So I went down this path of wanting to basically create an attribute on users for what level of service they have from us. And we basically offer either premium or frontline plus a few other licenses to shore it up with the security benefits of premium. So what we ended up going down was that we needed to attach this attribute basically to an application that was in the tenant, specifically an app registration. So if you have a multi-tenant app registration, you put it in your MSP tenant, you hand it out to all your customers, and then you can mount this attribute on that app. So for example, a lot of us have SIP. You might have a custom Rewst connector or some other multi-tenant app that's being pushed out to all your clients. But I used SIP for mine because it's one that we know is on everybody. And we put together this super simple workflow. This is like a V0.5, but basically goes in, finds, you have to enter this in a parameter, but we're going to put it in a bigger wrapper workflow that allows it to gather the object ID on its own, figure out what application you're trying to do with an options generator probably. Down here, we have all of the actual body parameters for the extension attribute set up. This might be a little easier if we go to the input configuration. So yeah, you need the object ID for the app you're trying to use, the name of the extension, so think of that as like an attribute name, the data type, which is going to be like string, boolean, date time, integer, large integer, and then multi-valued lets you use like a JSON object for that value, so you can populate it with a bunch of values, and you also get to pick what you're applying that custom attribute to. Currently, I have it set to user, but whatever you want to do. So this is actually executed through a form, but to get users, I just used one of the options generators that Rewst uses for their onboard and offboard forms. So on here, we can actually just pick out a couple of test users and say we want them to be premium. And now it'll set that custom attribute. And that's most of it. I do have, okay, so this is the flow that actually configures the extension itself. I've yet to put a form on this one, but you can just run a test, set everything you need. You only need to do this once. And then the actual form flow is taking the users you select and simply patching them with the extension you've just created. That's basically it. And honestly, the biggest benefit of using something like this is being able to, again, with SIP, push out something like dynamic groups that can leverage this attribute to, say, assign a set of licenses to users. That's our primary objective with it. So,
Awesome. Another side benefit of clean data, having that in place, and being able to do more with it. Almost like we have a theme there. All right, so Daniel, you're up now. Your turn.
Sounds good. So like most of you, I assume you all have a team spot that has just grown wildly out of control on you as far as a Rewst workflow goes. And I'm pretty sure between myself and Garrick, we have really tried to see how much work we can do out of Teams without ever actually having to go into any other platform, especially with the advent of Rewst. So here's our Teams workflow bot. It's everything from you can get the ticket note, you can create a ticket, you can get client info, you can mark a client or a tech called out, you can make a request for an automation. You can control the Sonos in the office with it. Thank you, Custom Integrations V2. So if somebody puts on an annoying song in the playlist, you can just skip it. You can add mailbox permissions. You can generate QBR data and have it Teams it back to you for a client. And then always you can just ask it a generic question and it'll pass it up to OpenAI to parse it out. The workflow I wanted to show off as a sub workflow here is our elevation just-in-time stuff. So it's one of the newest ones we built. Basically what it does is it lets you come to Teams and elevate yourself in either Office 365 or as a domain admin. So you can come in and just ask Mark, our bot, to elevate you. He'll look up the user list to see if you match to an admin account that is allowed to elevate themselves. It'll send you a duo push to actually approve it or deny it if it's not you. Kelvin, he is called Mark because when you do a Stretty meeting, it asks you to mark whomever is in attendance. And so we always assumed that Mark was joining our meetings. So we've just named him Mark whomever. From there, it'll check the platform asking if you're being elevated in Office 365 or Active Directory. It will then add you to the domain admins or the global admins group or use RMM to leverage adding you as a domain admin. After an hour, it will automatically remove you and let you know that you've been removed. So the actual workflow over here looks something to the effect of he'll send him a message, he'll send you a duo push and let you know that it's coming. It gets approved. reaches out into Entra and adds me to the security group for global admins, and now I have global admin on our tenant. That's automatically removed after an hour. So this probably was a pretty quick one that I built out. I do have a couple things on the roadmap of adaptive cards so that I can pick a role if I don't want to go all the way up to global admin. And then also logging everything to an Azure table was the next thing on the list to do. But with the advent of, we don't need global admins, we don't let elevation of least privilege. It was kind of a cool one to, take care of quickly. What's up, Jim Berry?
Awesome.
What do you do about local computers that are not domain joined? Are you going to do laps or something as an additional?
Yeah, we have laps everywhere for Office 365, so or in Entra, so in Intune. So ultimate goal would be pretty cool to be able to pull a laps password out, but I don't know if they're available via graph, unless you know, Kelvin, off the top of your head. No, okay, bummer.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank
All
you.
right, you got a lot of celebration cheers. Thank you again. Okay, so now we've got just enough time for our last demo. Aaron, and then you are up. Yes, Aaron Birch, are you there? Just told me that you were good to go. Okay, Mike is acting weird. Does anybody, we'll let him try to get his mic up. You can just chime in when you're ready. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions for any of the presenters or anything at all on their minds? Because Aaron's our last demo too. So if he's getting, we could talk about hard water. We'll just jump right over to Q&A if he's not able to get in. So I'm clicking on this, but I'm predicting that it's going to be a game. Polaroid. That's funny. Lucas, you shouldn't be allowed to talk about that anymore unless you get up here and present how you made it.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, there we are.
Sorry about that.
All
Always
good.
want to
You've
present right.
got the floor now.
All right. So what I'm showing off is that there's a workflow directly from Rewst, which is sync 365 users with ConnectWise PSA contacts. Now, when we initially unpacked this workflow, we found out that if you have a client who uses both Google and 365 and you run the Rewst workflow on them, if not all users are in 365, it still prioritizes that and everything like that. And it can run into an issue where if a client has both, it can actually deactivate the ConnectWise contacts. So I ended up branching off the original workflow and essentially just integrating Google into it so we can have one workflow that does 365 users and one that does Google users. For the most part, this is relatively the same. Thanks for Rewst for the max results running into that. Something I ran into was that it would only pull back, I think it was 100 or 150 users from Google by default. Our client has something in the odds of 300 something, so that quite wasn't working right. The max results was super helpful that we ran into. But one of the biggest things was that there's not a whole lot of overlap between 365 and Google about how contacts are formatted, how phone numbers are formatted, how emails are. Everything's different terms, everything's different usage. So there's not a whole lot of overlay. So I actually had to break down the workflow. And for example, I think it's, yep. Sorry, there's a lot of just kind of variable assignment inside of this. Here we go. For one, it still uses a few of the like for loops are still using the graph user input. However, they are pulling it from the actual Google user's output. So it may look a little bit confusing, and it is something I got to go back and touch up. But as for now, it's working and everything like that for us. It checks if the user is currently archived, because that is our typical standard inside of Google, is if there's a terminated user, something like that, we archive them. And then we can go from there after, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it may be. The naming was quite a bit different over on Google from 365. For 365, I think it was something along the lines of, it was a lot simpler. I think it was first name, last name, or something like that. Whereas Google really likes to hide it under name, given name, family name, and what is essentially the UPN for Azure is the primary email address inside of Google. So kind of finding all the little nuances like that in each of the set variables, which there's something like 6 or 7 of them where it used that Azure variables, was something that it was a lot of play with. I would get through, 3-4 calls, and then all of a sudden it would start calling out to an Azure named variable or something like that. And I had to go in, re-edit it, and reformat it for the Google side of things. And it was kind of just a little bit of trial and error until we actually got that up and running. Something that I also ran into when I was working on this was the active graph users disabled in PSA. That function block was not working correctly. I believe it was this one. So I had to work with Rewst a little bit on getting this one up and running, because it took us like 2 days to find the issue. And the reason is because I thought it was initially, I cloned my workflow. I'm making it work for Google, which is not its intended purpose. I figured it was something that I missed a variable, I missed a nomenclature, something like that. It actually seemed to be messed up in the original Rewst workflow, and that's where I copy and pasted it from. So it definitely took a little bit of tracking back to realize, oh, it's not just because I replaced a few variable names. It's actually not activating the PSA contacts on the 365 side. We had to go ahead and kind of take a deep dive into that, and that took a few days. But as of now, how we have it, it is pulling the phone numbers that users have set up for their MFA method, and it uses that as their primary contact phone number. And it has been working pretty smoothly from everything that I have been seeing, and it functions pretty much exactly the same as the 365 side one. One thing that is super helpful is that we only have to have that one API call, at least out to Google. So it's not, making 1,000 API calls to check this, check this, check this. It pulls that one user format like it does in the original workflow, and then just kind of works from there. And that's pretty much all I have. It's not a very big thing, but it was definitely nice to do. And it was quite a bit of back and forth between Rewst support trying to figure out where exactly the issue was lying.
Thank you. That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Aaron, or any other experience working with the Google Workspace? We've got 4 more minutes now, so if anybody has any other questions or wants to chime in on anything, now's the time.
Where's our folders?
Aaron,
Negative
do you have an
time
answer
savings,
for that
please?
one? Aaron with an A.
Is there more than one Aaron with an A though?
Oh. Aaron with 2 A's and an H. Aaron with a surprise. Aha.
I think Daniel is now just trying his hardest not to answer anything because he's so sick of the question about folders. I think he's even sicker of the question about negative time savings, but I'm still going to do it. When negative time savings?
You're all trolls.
Like Logan said, identify as a goblin.
Frank Heckman, did you want to ask your question? We've got a couple minutes here before everyone drops. We also can take it offline if needed. Otherwise, we can all enjoy our weekend. Head out for the weekend and see you all next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Meow.
Meow.
Bye.
Great weekend. Meow.